The brisk autumn wind in Boston brought the earthy aroma of dried leaves as I climbed the weathered steps to my family's classic brownstone. The first Sunday of November always meant one thing for the Mitchell clan: our traditional vacation planning. Dinner. For nearly 3 decades, I'd sat at that polished mahogany table, quietly eating Mom's roast while Victoria, my elder sister, led the charge on extravagant trips. Her ideas always outshone everyone else's, and my suggestions were ignored. "Maya, sweetheart, you made it." Mom's voice floated from the kitchen as I hung my coat in the entryway. The familiar blend of rosemary and silent disappointment filled the house. Victoria was already at the dining table, her immaculate nails drumming on a rose-gold MacBook. At 32, she was the picture of practiced indifference, her hair in soft, expensive waves, her burgundy sweater likely pricier than my monthly rent. Her husband David sat loyally by her side, agreeing to every word like a golden retriever. Maya has arrived," Victoria declared, eyes never leaving her screen. "Now, we can begin the real planning." I slid into my usual seat at the far end, the chair that had become mine over the years, just out of reach of the main conversation, always an observer, never included. Dad came in from his study, glasses perched on his nose, carrying a leather folder marked "Family Finances" in his neat hand. As our lifelong CPA and advisor to Boston's wealthy, he approached all things with accountant-level thoroughness. "Okay, everyone," he started, seating himself at the head. "Victoria's found us an outstanding opportunity in Dubai. She's done all the research, contacted agents, even spoken with concierges." Victoria's eyes brightened as she spun her laptop around, displaying a breathtaking resort: infinity pools, golden beaches, fantasy-like architecture. Atlantis Royal Dubai. 7 nights, all-inclusive. "I've already arranged for the Royal Bridge suite." Mom clasped her hands, wedding ring catching the chandelier's light. "It looks divine." "It should," Victoria smirked, basking in the attention. "The suite alone is $25,000 a night. Private beach, butler, helipad, panoramic views." I nearly choked on my water as she casually dropped the price. "That's just accommodation," David added, clearly impressed with his wife's taste, showing off a detailed itinerary. Victoria. Planned helicopter rides, yacht charters, exclusive shopping, spa treatments that cost more per hour than most people make in a week, and dinner at restaurants you have to book 6 months in advance. Victoria nodded, excitement building as she described each luxury. "There's Bedouin-style glamping at $8,000 a night, camel racing, private Louvre Abu Dhabi tours, after-hours Cartier and Bulgari shopping." Dad pulled out his vintage calculator. 7 nights, plus all extras, comes to about $180,000, David announced, pride in his voice. Silence fell as everyone processed the amount. Mom looked stunned, mentally calculating how many charity galas it would take to raise such money. Dad scribbled numbers on a legal pad. "Split 5 ways, Mom, me, Victoria, David, Maya." "4 ways," Victoria cut in, her tone icy. The air chilled. That old pit formed in my stomach, the same one from childhood whenever Victoria decided I was out of place. 4? Mom asked, uncertain. Victoria finally looked at me, face mixing pity and disdain. "Come on. Maya works at that little tech firm." "What do you do, again?" "Websites." "I work in tech," I replied. "Right, tech," Victoria sneered, using air quotes. "Let's be honest, Maya can't swing $45,000 for a vacation. That's probably her annual take-home." David nodded, adjusting his glasses. "Victoria's right. We can't expect Maya to handle that." The familiar sting of humiliation crept up my neck. For years, my family had made assumptions about me, my job, my life, my worth. I was the quiet daughter who left their privileged circles for a world of computers. "Maya, why not plan your own trip?" Victoria suggested, her patronizing tone in full effect. "Maybe Vermont, something quaint under $200 a night." Mom squeezed my hand sympathetically, making things worse. Nothing wrong with budget travel, honey. Not everyone can afford luxury. Dad nodded, kindly but off the mark. There are great trips at every price range. I looked around. Seeing sympathy but not understanding. Victoria looked triumphant, David bored, my parents compassionate but clueless. They had no idea who I'd become, what I'd achieved. The irony was rich. Here they were, planning to spend $180,000 in a week, assuming I couldn't afford it, when I had more in my checking account than they'd ever see. But they'd never asked. You can't afford Dubai, Victoria said, closing her laptop. Stick to your budget, Maya. No shame in knowing limits. Something shifted in me then, not anger, but a quiet certainty. I was tired of being overlooked. I smiled, genuinely, for the first time all evening, and reached into my designer purse. You're right, Victoria, I said. I should stick to what I can afford. I placed my black Amex Centurion card on the table. It made a satisfying thunk on the wood, gleaming under the lights. Victoria barely glanced at it. Having a credit card doesn't mean you're right. I interrupted. Let me show you what I can afford. I pulled out my phone, opened my bank app, and turned the screen for all to see, $47,847,293.18. Victoria went pale, her mouth opening and closing. Mom whispered, "What's that?" My checking account, I replied. Just one of them. Dad leaned in, stunned. That's $47 million? 47.8, I clarified, plus or minus, depending on investments. The silence was total. Victoria stared like it was a trick. David dropped his tablet. How? That little computer company? I said. Quantum Solutions. I founded it 6 years ago in my Cambridge apartment. Shocked murmurs erupted. We do AI analytics for Fortune 500s. Microsoft bought us last year for $2.3 billion. Mom gasped. I kept a 30% stake, plus $800 million in cash. My shares are now worth $1.1 billion and rising. Victoria looked shattered. $800 million. I've listened for years as you assumed I was struggling, I said calmly. Victoria, you just told me you thought I made less than $45,000. Her composure crumbled. But you drive an old Honda. You live in a tiny apartment. You shop at regular stores. I drive a 2018 Civic, it's practical. And that's tiny apartment? I own the building. 14 high-end condos, worth $12 million. Dad scribbled numbers, his mind spinning. If you have $47 million liquid and $12 million in property, plus stock, net worth, about $1.7 billion, I stated. Forbes lists me as the 7th richest under 35 in Massachusetts. I've made their 30 under 30 tech list 3 years running. Chaos broke out. Mom cried, Dad dropped his calculator, David looked stunned. Victoria's world seemed to crumble. This isn't possible, she stammered. You'd have told us. When? I asked. When you mocked my apartment? When you called my career a phase? You never cared to ask. Mom, tearful, whispered, why didn't you tell us? I needed to know who you all were, when you thought I had nothing. Victoria straightened, business instincts firing. Well, you could book the whole resort. A month in Dubai, private jets, I saw the calculation in her eyes. I could, I said. Let me show you something. I opened my investment app. See this resort? Atlantis? I own 18% of Atlantis Resorts International. That means the Royal Bridge Suite, and everything else, is free for us, as long as we want. All inclusive, $40. Irony at its finest, Victoria had planned a trip to exclude me, only to discover I could provide it all for free. Here's what will happen, I said, using my boardroom tone. I'll book the suite for 10 days in February. Everyone's invited. Victoria's eyes brightened. Except you, Victoria. The words hit hard. No, Mom, I said. As she protested. Victoria's made decisions for years based on her assumptions about my finances, excluding me from family events. She doesn't get a free pass now. I stood, looking out at the street where I'd always felt like an outsider. Victoria, you said I couldn't afford this trip. Truth is, I can't afford the kind of family that judges worth by net value. Victoria was sobbing now. I was only being practical, she pleaded. No, you were being cruel, I replied. Dad cleared his throat. Perhaps we were too quick to assume. Yes, I said. You never asked about my life, just managed. The family money. The reality settled over the room, it wasn't just my wealth they'd underestimated. Quantum Solutions started in my apartment. I worked 18-hour days, built something revolutionary. I've been recognized by TechCrunch, Harvard wrote. A case study, even Satya Nadella called my work groundbreaking. Victoria, small, wiped her nose. We didn't know. Because you never asked, I answered. You saw what you wanted to see. I picked up my phone. The Dubai trip is happening. 10 days, all expenses paid, private jets. Mom, Dad, you're in. David, you too. Victoria's desperate eyes met mine. Victoria, you can earn your way back, but it requires personal growth. What do you mean? She asked. 3 months volunteering with nonprofits helping women entrepreneurs, 20 hours a week, and weekly reports. I want to see what you learn. She looked incredulous. You're giving me homework? It's a chance to understand why your behavior was damaging. Complete it, and you can join us. Or plan your own Vermont trip. It was poetic justice. Isn't that harsh? David interjected. Your wife excluded me over money while I sat with more assets than your whole lineage. Community service is generous. Mom, still emotional, apologized. We just assumed you'd tell us if you'd made it. Every time I tried, Victoria changed the subject, Dad suggested safer careers. Eventually, I stopped trying. The room filled with the weight of regret. Real family supports each other, even in quiet ways. Real family doesn't judge. By account balances. Real family listens and asks questions. I gathered my things. Wait, Victoria called, voice trembling. I'm sorry. Truly. I paused. I'm not angry, just disappointed. That's worse, it means I expected better. Don't leave like this, Mom pleaded. I'm not gone forever. I'm going home to book the trip. You'll get details tomorrow, including the jet. I pulled on my coat as Victoria asked, why? The volunteer work starts Monday. I'll send a list of places. I looked back. And next time you judge someone's means, financial or emotional, remember this. I descended the familiar steps, the night crisp. My phone buzzed, my assistant reminding me of a board meeting, Forbes requesting an interview. I smiled, starting my Civic, finally free of their assumptions. The drive to Cambridge was peaceful. My building, a restored brownstone of luxury condos, felt like home. Inside my penthouse, the Charles River sparkled below. My phone rang, Victoria's name appeared. I found a nonprofit, Women's Business Initiative of Boston. They help women entrepreneurs. I want to volunteer. I gazed at the skyline, hope stirring for the first time. Good choice, Victoria. You'll learn more than you expect. And yes, I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. For the first time, Victoria sounded sincere. Thank you, I replied. After hanging up, I researched Dubai's best experiences, not to show off, but to give my family a memory. Sometimes, true wealth is about healing and connection, not money. The Amex still listed $47.8 million in checking, but for the first time, I felt like the richest person alive, not because of the cash, but because of a new hope for real relationships. As I started planning a vacation that would transform us, I smiled and Victoria was right. I couldn't afford their kind of trip, but I could give us something better. A new beginning built on honesty, respect, and the kind of love that can't be